Hello, my name is Croissant, and if you're watching this, I finally made another YouTube video. I finally decided to commit to making high-effort YouTube videos. I have gone back and forth on doing this for years, and I'm finally doing it, so be proud of me, please. I want to make art, but I didn't really know what kind for a really long time. Everybody always tells you, find your niche. Guys, I hate a niche. I get so bored. So easy. In all, I decided I'm doing all of it. That means I'm doing book arts. I promise you, it is the coolest thing ever because you can do so much with it. Basically, you can do any medium in any way and have it considered book arts as long as it is a continuous thing of art. I've seen art books that are scrolls. I've seen art books that are a series of flipped out pictures and paintings. I've seen art books where it is literally a box and you open it up and each page is a dice or a little cube. I took a class while I studied abroad in Italy. I know, and I fell in love with it. I already really liked it. But I have a bunch of different books where I learned how to bookbind in a bunch of different ways. It's really hard to make books without a paper cutter, but it really hasn't stopped me, even if they look a little janky. Alright, so here's my inspo. In my book arts class, we made a set of Japanese bound notebooks set in a little case, and I want to recreate that, but with a little twist. I'm going to make 4 sets of books that are going to go into this little case, but I'm going to have a theme that goes along with them. Each book will have a video attached, as I'm going to add comics on the inside of all of them that has to do with the theme. You're wondering, what is my theme? My theme is going to be cryptids for this set, at least. I've been really into cryptids lately. I've always found them interesting. I love mythology and storytelling in any culture. The comics inside will be things like first sightings or fun sightings that have to do with the cryptid, along with fun facts or anything interesting I find about the cryptid. Today's video is video 1 of my 4 to 5 part series. You may be wondering, what is my first cryptid? What am I going to focus on? There's a lot of cryptids I really like, but I decided to focus first on Mothman. I find him very silly. He's a very silly cryptid. Most of the lore behind him is just him spooking people out, and I find that really fun. Also, the internet has really latched on to Mothman, so there's just really fun, cool art that people have made that has also really inspired me to do this. So I'm doing a fun one to start. This is a lot less research of a cryptid. Something like the Wendigo or skinwalkers or something like that has a lot more rich history behind it that I would need to do a lot of research for, so I'm starting myself off easy. When trying to design what I wanted my Mothman to look like, it was kind of a struggle. Like all cryptids, he's not the most understood of what he looks like. The only for sure things people say in common is he has red eyes, wings, and he's the size of a man. So that can really look like a lot of things. He's called Mothman, but from that description, he could be just a guy with wings. He could be something super fluffy. He could be super spindly like an alien, right? So here's a bunch of different ways I sketched him out. I ended up landing on the more bug-like, alien-like representation of him. It really lends itself to the printmaking process, especially linoleum printmaking, as I'll be carving this design into that for my cover. I didn't mention that. Oh, yeah. I'm doing a linoleum print for the cover of each book, so this one is going to be a picture of Mothman. So to start out with my book, I have to carve away this linoleum. But before I can do the linoleum, I have to actually cut the paper. Cutting the paper is the bane of my existence consistently. I am so bad at cutting paper, and I don't even know how to change it. I'm constantly trying to be super precise, but I'm not. And then on top of that, I don't have a paper cutter or a pretty nice setup, so there was a lot of wiggle room for this one. All right, now with the linoleum. I'm using the gray linoleum for this project. I carved mostly in a middle-sized knife. If you are looking to do something like this, make sure you are taking your time. The last thing you want to do is for it to slip and carve out a spot. You don't want to be carved out. I have struggled with that many times in the past, so I was going pretty slow. You also don't want to hurt yourself. Slipping has you hurt yourself as well. Gray lino is a lot harder to carve into, so if you're worried about that, try to go for the pink stuff. I know Speedball sells that, but the gray lino is a lot cheaper. I rotate mine a ton, so I make sure that if I slip, I'm not slipping into a space I don't want to be carved in. This is one way I have been able to work around some of those challenges. And all in all, after carving this one, I'm really proud of this design. The design lends really well to the lino process, and I'm very proud of the design and print I have made. All right, guys, so I made a mistake. Don't poke binding holes before printing. I really wasn't thinking when I did this. I don't know. I was struggling to figure out the order of things, what would be easiest, and this was not the easiest. Don't do this. I didn't expect to struggle so bad with the binding, but the holes were really rough. That is because I'm dumb. I thought I could poke holes without clipping the pages together. Always clip them together. Please, if you're doing any bookbinding, clip your pages together. I don't know why I thought I could do this. It is just, just clip your pages together. But before I bind, I realized I fucked up. And I need to print. So I'm switching. So basically what happened here is I punched all the holes, started binding, realized, oh shit, I need to print, otherwise this is not gonna work, and went back and printed. So the holes are already punched and I went to go print. Grab your lino block, grab your ink. I use water soluble because I don't have the means to clean oil-based, and more like space and time and messiness, and I don't wanna deal with it. So I use oil-based. Grab your roller and place your roll on your ink. Most importantly, extra paper to practice on. Printing can be so finicky, and especially with water-based, it's all about speed to a degree, so it takes me a while to get used to it. So doing a couple pre-prints is the best, and sometimes even my pre-prints are better than my actual print, and we're gonna see that soon. You're gonna wanna roll out your ink until it sounds like sizzling bacon, and it looks wet and sticky still. You don't wanna roll it out so much that you can't. There's no ink going on. Roll your ink onto your block. Make sure you cover your whole block with ink. Once covered, flip ink side down onto your practice paper and use something flat to rub on the back in a circular motion to make the whole thing even. I didn't do this the first time I started printing at home, and this really changed everything, especially with the type of block I'm using. So that was really awesome. Definitely do that if you're printing at home. I literally used the back of a bottle. It's super easy. Lastly, peel your block off your paper. I did 4 different prints as I was doing this, and I ended up actually liking one of my prints on my test paper, as I kind of said, versus the actual pages I had cut. So I just cut out the one I liked better and switched it out. I'm glad I did this for the print, but because I didn't use clips to keep my holes, even this decision ended up making my papers uneven. So again, don't not clip yours. And then when I switched it, so my stuff was off, and you're gonna see that my binding is kind of crooked, and it's because I didn't do the holes right. Also, in this process, let your print dry fully. I am impatient, as you might have gathered from this. I'm working on it, I'm trying to get better, but I didn't let mine dry fully, so as I started doing the binding, I got ink everywhere with my fingers. So there's smudges on it, which is really sad. So now it's time to bind. I wanted to do this super cool, interesting binding. Look at these. Aren't these so cool? I especially wanted to do this like dragonfly pattern because it was reminiscent of like the bug-like Mothman, right? I couldn't do it. That was really complicated. I couldn't figure out the butterfly. Then I went for this other design, and it just wasn't working. I think either it was too small or my holes were bad, and I would totally agree with the holes being bad because I punched them horribly. I am definitely learning a lot through this process, but hopefully changes will be made. and the next book will be much better. Okay, so now it's time to bind. If you want to do this pattern, you will need an awl, which is this pointy thing, binding clips, and embroidery thread. If you want to do it the proper way, you can get it waxed linen. I don't have that, and for this binding, it's not necessary, so I'm just using embroidery thread. Poke 16 holes about an inch away from the spine of your book in sets of 4 millimeters away from each other. Then put a space about 8 millimeters between each set of 4. Now the book is made. She's a little messy, but I'm working on it. Now we're on to the contents. This first page is going to be an info page of some facts and info about Mothman. I don't know if I'm dumb or crazy, but somehow I counted my pages wrong, and now I have 2 extra pages that I was not planning on. I'll get to that. I mostly use surface level web searching for this, so Wikipedia, WestVirginiaTourism.com. There's this YouTuber I really like, made a video. This is the Lore Lodge. There's a lot more information about Mothman and the myths of it that I found interesting as well. But on this front page, I started with a basic description of Mothman and then continued to the first sighting most commonly cited. Another interesting point of Mothman is the idea that it's an omen for disaster. So I also mentioned that kind of surrounding its mythos. And then lastly, on the first page, I mentioned critics' ideas of what people might be seeing, with the idea that it's the sandhill crane or a barn owl, although I don't think either really makes sense, but we don't really know what he looks like, so also I see that. But this one is my most simple page, but it's really necessary to set up the book, so we understand what we're even looking at, especially if you don't know the mythos of Mothman. Alright, now the fun stuff. First page, comic 1. This comic is just depicting the first sighting of Mothman. This one was hard. There were so many details, and it took forever. I have so much footage of this one. I'm using gouache, so I'm working on building up paint, especially for the night setting for this story. Because it's dark, you're building up more color and mixing, and it's small, and blah, 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 blah. I sketched, and I used gouache. I also used some pen on top of it to make more of the lines evident. I did that on the first page too. I'm pretty proud of this one. I like the colors I picked along with the expressions of the characters. I'm still a beginner when it comes to comics, so this has been teaching me a lot. I will say building up and figuring out trees was a struggle, but I find trees particularly hard most of the time to pull off effectively, and there are a lot of trees in these comics, so that's part of the problem. But overall, very happy with this one. My comic 2. This one was a silly idea, but I still really enjoyed it. I have these red sunglasses that I love, and I see them all the time in different stores, and I thought it would be funny if a creature with large red eyes were seeing this and probably would think it's somebody like him, especially from far away. I don't know how well the eyesight would be, especially if it's like bug eyesight, so I found this very funny and interesting. I like the comic in the quality of each panel. I just feel like there might be a better way to angle the ending one. I didn't really like my angles of shots in this one. That's definitely something I need to work on in my comics, but I'd love to hear some thoughts about it and how you might angle things. On a side note, this bitch would definitely take him home and take care of him like a child. He saw these huge red-ass eyes and said, yeah, I want them to come closer to me. That's a really good idea. Alright, comic 3. You gotta hear me out. I promise. Yes, this is a 9/11 comic. But remember me talking about the Omen thing? I felt like the absurdity of seeing Mothman right before 9/11 happened was really funny, and the juxtaposition of a silly Mothman and the tragedy of 9/11. I know some might think this is in poor taste, but I find it funny, and realistically, I'm not making fun of 9/11 in this. I'm making fun of Mothman and saying that it's a omen for disaster when these are really real things happening. But some people genuinely believe in Mothman, so I guess we can give and take. I do wish I found some more 2000s outfits for these guys. I think it would have been better, honestly, but I didn't have the brain power to do that, and I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out, so I'm not too upset. I struggled with the explosion, but after some reference pictures, I am pretty happy with it. I will say I do need to be better about my pencil lines showing through. This one actually had a light background, and let's just say I wasn't used to that one. I get a little lazy sometimes. Okay, now we're on to those extra 2 pages that I didn't mean to add and I didn't know what to do with. I'm making a collage. Now, I thought this would be a fun end to the book. I was getting pretty bored of making comics. As I said, I get bored pretty easy, and I love collaging. So this kind of seemed like the right idea. But this was so much fun. I did a general sketch of my idea and then went in to find my materials. I am luckily currently living at my parents', so I get to use their home printer. There are pros and cons of my setup, for sure. But I get a home printer, so that's nice. These are all the random stuff I have around from other art projects or just stuff I've collected. For a while during this process, I wasn't sure if it was going to turn out, but I love how it looks at the end. I ended up using images, yarn, gouache, alcohol markers, printed fabric, an old show program, and stamps. This was my favorite page, and I think I'm going to make a collage for all of the books I'm going to make. And honestly, right, I get bored using the same medium over and over again, so hopefully, and that reflects often in my work, so this should actually help some of that fatigue when I'm making my future comics. And I'm done! My first book in my Cryptid series. I'm pretty happy with it, although there are definite flaws. There are flaws. But they are flaws I know how to fix in the future. One of the ones I didn't talk about is there was some bleed through from my collage to my one comic, so that's something I definitely want to work on, just as another thing. I'm happy with using gouache as it adds a really nice quality, and I love my Mothman print. I'm so proud of that. But what do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts, as I often get inspiration or great ideas from other people who see my work. If you like this video, you should subscribe so you can see the next 3 of these books. Of course, it would mean a lot to me to like or even comment, as I'm a small artist and hearing feedback from people is my light. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next art dive.